Hello everybody and welcome back to Evolving Vibes. I'm so glad you came back, and I've got a lot of information to share with you today with regard to paganism, what it means to us, what our path actually means to us, and a lot of different ideas for you to consider. Now, as always, if anything I'm saying resonates with you, feel free to run with it. If it doesn't, leave it on behind, right? So before we get started, please be sure to like, subscribe, leave me a comment, hit the notification bell if you will. That does help my channel grow, believe it or not. The more interaction that I do get, the more positive my channel review gets on YouTube. So definitely feel free to do so. Now let's talk a bit about paganism, shall we? Just talking about it, a lot of the things I'm going to be saying are things that resonated with me and things that I've learned along my path, as well as things that I believe in. Now, as I said at the beginning of all this, hopefully you agree with it or it resonates with you as well. And if it does, run with it. Feel free, and I'm hopefully glad that I'm providing you with this information. Now, if for whatever the reason it doesn't resonate with you, then leave it behind, right? No harm, no foul. Now, I always recommend any witch, whether it be an experienced witch or a baby witch, go out there and do your own research too. Find out what books really work for you and find out what authors really work for you and run with it. There's nothing wrong with going out and researching everything on your own. It's probably the most healthy thing you can do, especially if you're just starting out, right? So to start off with, a lot of times in my life anyway, organized religions left me feeling flat. I was brought up a Catholic, and I've been to different types of churches in my life through friends, through relatives, and just out of my own curiosity. And nothing really resonated with me. I can definitely say Catholicism did not resonate with me whatsoever. And I'm not knocking it. There's nothing wrong with it. But I'm just talking about me and my spirit, my soul, and what vibed and what didn't vibe. So at a very young age, I kept asking myself, well, what's going on? What am I feeling? How come I'm feeling this? And what am I missing? And I always felt much more a part of and one with nature. Going for walks in the woods, going by the ocean, going anywhere outside just seemed to really fit my spirit. It just made me feel good, and I felt like I was actually in church. I remember not really being a pro-church kid as I was growing up, and when we did have to go to church, I just felt constrained. I felt like I was inside of a building. It really didn't have a lot of meaning to me, but certainly I felt like I was being controlled. And that was one of the biggest things in my life that followed through over and over again as redundancy. To the point of, at one point in my life, my parents enrolled me into a Catholic school. And that was very challenging from the first day all the way on. I'm not going to bore you with all the stories, but needless to say, during spring break of that first year, my parents got a letter saying I wasn't going to be invited for the rest of the school year, and that they recommended I go out and find another school. So there were a lot of questions I had with the priest, with the sisters and such, that I thought were thought-provoking, that they thought was sort of disrespectful. So that being said, that was my short term in Catholic school. After that, everything else just sort of fell into place for me because I stopped going to churches. I started spending more time outside, more time in the woods, and things started really clicking for me. Now, as we go into this, what we would be called, I would suppose, by an organized religion standpoint, is being a pagan. Being a pagan is someone that more resonates with nature and believes in the all. In other words, I'm part of the God is part of me, we're all part of the all. Nature, the universe, all of that. And that also goes back to the Kabbalion. If you want to go back and look at that other video I did, I think you'd find that really informative as well. So when we look at the term paganism, one of the things that really comes up to me anyway is that that's a category, that's a classification that was put on people that were believing in different deities. Maybe they had multiple deities. Maybe they had one deity in particular, or maybe they just worshipped nature. There's a lot of groups of people that fell into that category and that label of paganism. And obviously you can probably guess when the term pagan came out, it wasn't a very positive term. And it wasn't so much descriptive as much as it was damning. If you were deemed a pagan back in the day, you could pretty much rest assured that unless you converted, you were going to die. One of the things that really pop up, because it is March, is St. Patrick's Day. It's probably my least favorite recognized national holiday, if you will. I'm not sure you want to call it. But St. Patrick's famous for driving all of the snakes out of Ireland. Now, fun fact for you, pagans always, in particular, Irish pagans, always had a tattoo on their arm of a snake. So the celebration of St. Patrick isn't celebrating literally driving the snakes out of Ireland. It's mass genocide and driving pagans out of Ireland and converting Ireland to Christianity. And that's the celebration of it all. So it's kind of a bloody thing to be celebrating. And that's why I find it one of the more disdainful traditions that we have in modern times. Now, if you're asking yourself, what kind of signs do I have that I'm a pagan? What do I feel? How do I perceive these things? Well, I'm just going to look at some notes while we do this. One of the major signs that you probably have is you love being outdoors. You resonate with the outdoors. You resonate with nature. You find yourself at one with nature, and you ground yourself. And it makes you feel complete. And that's one sign that you're a pagan. Another sign is you not only observe, but you cherish the seasonal changes. One of the things pagans do have are 8 Sabbaths. And it's all about the seasonal changes as well as mid-seasons. So it's something that we cherish. It's something that we celebrate 8 times a year, every few months actually, and it's something that we hold near and dear to us, the Wheel of the Year. And down the road, I'll be doing another video on the Wheel of the Year because we are coming up with one Sabbath for this month, and that's going to be Astera, and we'll talk more about that in another video. Another belief that pagans have is that all life is sacred. And I'm not talking about pro-life, and I'm not getting into that whole argument with pro-lifers and stuff like that. I'm talking about all life. Whether it be a spider, whether it be an insect, whether it be an animal, all life is sacred. They all have spirits. They all have, lack of a better word, a destiny, and they all have a purpose. That being said, I'm one of those people that if I do find insects in a house, I tend to get them outside so they go back into their natural habitat. I'm not the type of person that crushes bugs. And I do welcome spiders. I do have spiders in my house, and I have no issue with spiders. I'm sharing space with them. They're part of my roommates. It's all good. So all life is sacred for pagans, or most pagans anyway. Another belief that we have is that there is a higher force and a higher intelligence, but we don't classify it as a god. A lot of times we classify it as the all, part of the universe, part of us. We're part of the all is part of us, we're part of the universe. So it's more of a universal belief than it is specifically about one god or deity. Now, I know me, I do take Hecate as one of my deities that I work with. Now, when I do things with Hecate, when I do things with any deity, because I also do things with Bridget, one of the things I believe is when I'm calling and invoking that deity into my life and into the spell work that I'm going to do, what I'm actually doing is calling those attributes from the universe into my spell work and into me. I'm not so much specifically looking at Hecate coming in, which she very well could be, because like I said, it's all the all. So I'm actually calling in that attribute. I'm calling in what I believe is important from her work to work with me on my work. And that's how I look at deities. And that's how I look at that higher consciousness and that higher plane. So all that being said, if you do all of that, you're probably a pagan, or you're on that pagan path, right? Another aspect of it is, do you describe yourself as eclectic? Now, there's all types of witches, and I'm using witches right now as an example. There's head witches, kitchen witches, sea witches, all sorts of things. I grab from all of that. If it resonates with me, I take it and I hold it in. If it doesn't resonate with me, I let it go. So I do a lot of herbal work. I do a lot of sea magic. I do a lot of kitchen witchery. I do a lot of different things for spells. Whatever is working for me at that time is what I'm actually doing. So I do stone work, candle work, crystal work, you name it. I like it all, and a lot of things work for me, and so why not use them, right? There's no rules. That's the best part about all this. There are no rules. You do you in the practice that you like. And that's all you have to be happy with. So another aspect that you want to consider is that you have that wonderment of magic. In other words, you look at the universe, you look at the night, you look at the moon, you look at the world, and you see wonder and magic in everything out there. You look in the eyes of a living creature and you can feel and see their soul. That's what it means to be a pagan. That's what pagans actually naturally do. It's not something that you learn, although you can. It comes very much natural to you. Just like all of these other things I've been listing, I guarantee you, if you look back in your life, each and every one of them you've been doing without realizing it. Another aspect that you want to consider about being a pagan is how the modern life really affects you. Like most pagans or witches, right now I'm going to say witches, how would you say, really high in empathy. They're empaths for the better part of it all. So they go out into the world, whether you go grocery shopping or go out, they start to feel and collect a lot of different energies from a lot of different people. Some of it's emotion, some of it's pain, but all of it is very much draining. That being said, we tend to ground ourselves quite frequently by getting back out in nature, or just walking barefoot on the grass, or simply lighting a candle or an incense when we get home in order to get that energy off of us and in order to recharge our own energy because we've been drained a little bit. So if you find yourself doing that, that's also a really sure sign that you're a pagan. Now, before we get started a little bit further, one of the things I want to touch ground upon is most of us say, oh, I've learned this or I've learned that. But my belief personally is not so much we're learning it, but we're remembering it. Like when I was a kid, I would spend many an hour inside the woods. And in the woods, I'd be collecting branches. I'd be collecting leaves. I would be collecting herbs. And I would have a bowl, and I would put all of that in, and I would mix it. And I would really think about intent of things that I wanted as I'm mixing all of that. I hadn't read any books back then. I had no idea about the path back then, but I was remembering things that my soul knew and that my soul is comfortable with doing. And that's been my path my whole life. As I go on, I start to recall more things and I start attributing them into my practice. Some of it is stuff that just pops in my head. Others is just things that resonate as I'm reading it. And again, that's why it's most important to continue on with your own personal research for your own personal path. Now, some of the other things to consider is, what is paganism? We talked about that topical explanation with, it was label that were put on people like us, and it was a lot of times a death sentence unless you wanted to convert. Now, when we look at the modern paganism or neo-paganism, we have a lot of different beliefs that fall into this umbrella. I'm not going to go into all of them. What I am going to do is go into the one that I get questioned on the most in DMs. And that is, what's the difference between a Wiccan and a witch? So here's a very simple explanation, definition, if you will. So, all Wiccans are witches. Not all witches are Wiccans. So, the Wiccan religion, which it is actually a recognized religion, began in 1950. It began in England, and it was started by this gentleman named Gardner. Now, he brought witchcraft and Wicca into the forefront in a positive light versus a lot of the other ways it was looked at prior to. He really demonstrated the fact that witches don't worship the devil or Satan. They don't worship God or Jesus Christ either. They simply don't believe in either one. And he went on to explain a lot of the attributes of the Wiccan religion. Now, a Wiccan is a witch. However, they are part of a religion. And they are bound to very specific expectations of that religion. Not going into all of them, but I will go into one aspect of the Wiccan Rede. I'm not going to bore you with the whole Wiccan Rede, but one aspect of the Wiccan Rede is, if it harm none, do as you will. Now, that's part of Wicca where they don't do hexes, or they discourage hexing, and they discourage a lot of other aspects. And that's fine. And if you're Wiccan, I love you, I embrace you, and welcome. Witches, however, don't follow any religious order. A lot of people become witches because they don't want to follow any religious order. Now that's going to bring us to our next question. What about covens? Because you don't have to be Wiccan to be part of a coven, but there are a lot of covens in Wicca. Now, I do have other friends that are witches that are part of a coven. And a coven will usually have anywhere between 10 and 15 people. Seems like for me in this area, I'm in New England, the prime number is 13. A coven binds its members by coven rules. The coven usually has their own personal book of shadows or grimoire, and one of the things that the inductee into that coven has to do is transcribe that grimoire into their own grimoire, so that they have the coven grimoire they're working from, and actually obviously have a promise of secrecy while doing so. Whatever's in that coven grimoire can't be shared, not with friends, not with relatives, not with anybody. So I'm not a coven type witch. Again, I like being a solitary practitioner. I vibe more with doing so. I do have friends that are witches, and I do work with them time to time on certain things, certain spells, and even with some sabbats. But that's where it ends for me. I'm not really big on covens, and I'm not saying there's anything at all wrong with a coven. I'm just saying, okay, that just doesn't hit my vibe, so that's where I'm at. Now that we've determined that, hey, you've been doing this for a while, or you're new, but you're starting to remember a lot of things from your previous experiences, and now everything's starting to vibe, and you're saying, okay, hey, I guess I'm a pagan. I can be a Wiccan pagan. I can be a solitary practitioning pagan. I can be a druid. I can be anything I want to be because there's no rules. However, I am a pagan. Congratulations. Let's give you a chair of tea on that one. Welcome to the family. Welcome to the universe. That all being said, now that we've all agreed that we're all pagans here, let's go over a few things that we need to stop doing right now before we do anything else in our practice. One of the things you need to stop doing right now is, please, for the love of the universe, stop trying to fit your old religion into your beliefs as a pagan, whether you be a Wiccan, whether you be a witch. Now, I'm not saying you can't merge the two. You certainly can if that's what you want to do. But you don't need to feel compelled to try to align Catholicism with paganism. Because I promise you, you're going to drive yourself mad if you try doing so. Don't worry about going to hell because you're a pagan. There is no such place. Where do we go when this body expires and my spirit goes out into the universe? That's the big question. I'm not sure anyone has an answer to it, but I'm very highly doubtful that I'm going to end up somewhere down below where there's fire, where there's Satan and all of that. Now, here's a little secret for you. Even Satanists don't believe in Satan. Now, what Satanist was founded on, that's also an organized religion. Satanism was founded on the Antichrist. Now, what that actually meant was they were anti-establishment. They were anti-religion. They were anti-Christianity. Therefore, they're anti-Christ. So when they're actually praying to the Antichrist or the Satan, it's more out of a figurative aspect versus actually worshiping an entity called Satan. And they have very specific rules as well. And they have very specific rules about not harming anyone and not harming people and not doing any type of those things you read about on Netflix or Hulu, where they're doing any type of baby worships or any type of sacrifices. What they do believe is if you harm them or are a danger to them, that they will harm you, which is the same belief I have. I call that defensive and protective magic. I'm not going out there to hex someone or do something to somebody, but if someone's coming at me and someone's going to potentially affect my life and my well-being, I am going to be defensive about it, and I am going to do things that I know I can do to limit their ability to affect my realm. For me, it's all about controlling my own realm. What you do in your realm is all about you. Have at it. What happens in my realm is under my control, and I don't relinquish my control that easily to anybody. So the first rule of things you want to do is please, please, please stop trying to fit paganism into your old beliefs and your old religion. You're going to start to drive yourself mad if you do. Now, another thing that we all need to stop doing as pagans is stop assuming all pagans are the same. I'm very much different than anybody else you'll ever meet. You're very much different than anybody else I'll ever meet. We're all individuals. We're on our own path. Sometimes our paths may converge and we meet and we enjoy the time we have together, and then we go back to going our own way. But I'm not going to judge your path. I'm not going to judge your beliefs, and I'm not going to ask you to judge mine. If anything, I'm going to discourage that. Reason being, we don't need judges. What we do need sometimes are people around us to be supportive, people around us to bounce ideas off of, but that's about it. And I'm just going to have another sip of tea before I start coughing. I don't know about you, but I was a part of a lot of witch groups on Facebook. And I gotta say, I've also dropped myself out of a lot of witch groups on Facebook. Reason being, I joined groups on Facebook, witchy groups on Facebook anyway, because I want to share ideas. I want to talk about herbs. I want to talk about spells. I want to talk about magic. And I want to share ideas from different parts of the world in different parts of the country. What I don't want when I'm on those groups on Facebook is 2 dozen, 3 dozen postings a day with asking for light and energy for this or for that or for that. I get it. You need help. But to really bind up any group like that, for me anyway, is kind of frustrating. Especially when it's the same people over and over again. Oh, Phyllis is having problems with her boyfriend again. Here we go, love and light, blah, blah, blah. That sort of thing. Another aspect about those groups that really irked me is the fact that everyone is so freaking judgmental. Oh, you can't do a love spell. Oh, you can't do that. Now, personally, I don't do love spells. I don't encourage them. If you do a love spell, I'm not going to judge you. You'll learn on your own whether or not it's a good fit for you and whether or not you want to do it. I ain't going to spend 20 minutes out of my night on Facebook writing up a dissertation as to why you shouldn't do a love spell. I'm not going to sit there and call you a kidnapper because you did a love spell. You do you. I'm not going to judge you. If it doesn't resonate with me, it doesn't resonate with me. But if it does with you, ain't none of my business. Same thing goes with me. I delve in what you want to call light and dark. I'm gray. There are things in the darkness that can offer you comfort and help you. There are things in the light that can help you as well. I go to any extreme, and I'm comfortable with doing that. I do a lot with necromancy, and I do a lot with spirit work because I'm a psychic and because of the tarot. It's a natural fit for me. If it doesn't fit for you, that's fine. But don't assume all pagans are the same, and don't assume that you hold every piece of bit of paganism and to be judge and jury on all your fellow pagans. And again, don't assume, oh, if you're Wiccan, you're a religion, you're not a witch. That's not the situation whatsoever, as I said a little bit earlier. So we need to stop being so judgy. We're here and we're survived because we were able to get past that. And people, actually this month, in Salem, Massachusetts, in the United States anyway, people started paying the ultimate price for people judging them. We don't need to be doing that. It's all about life, and it's all about us cherishing life, and it's all about us celebrating life. So I celebrate you and your beliefs, and I would hope that you celebrate me and my beliefs. Now, some of the other things that you want to do now that you're really warm and fuzzy and giving yourself that big hug about being a pagan is stop ignoring your intuition. When we talk about things in the Kabbalion video I did, one of the things I talk about is the masculine energy and the feminine energy. The masculine energy is our conscious thought. It's riddled with filters. It's riddled with opinions based upon past experiences. So it mucks up a lot our judgment. However, the feminine energy that we do have is the subconscious mind. That's the energy that's more pure. That's the energy that comes from the soul. That's where the voices in your heart and in your belly come in saying, don't be doing that, or hey, I gotta go do that. I gotta drop everything and I gotta go over there because that's where I need to be in 10 minutes. That is your intuition. Trust your instincts. Trust your intuition. If you feel like it's vibing with you, it is vibing with you. If you're feeling like something's not vibing with you and it's off, get the fuck out of there because it's not vibing with you and it is off. This is also true, especially because I do tarot readings. You try to explain something to somebody and that, well, what about this and what about that? And that I see a lot with relationships. I know he's been cheating on me. I know he's been drinking a lot. But does he love me? I'm like, girl, what do you want me to tell you? All I can tell you is these are the attributes that he's doing right now. You make your own decision. Well, is it going to work out? You know, you could really spell out in tarot, dump him. And people sometimes just aren't going to follow their instincts and follow their intuition. And I always start tarot readings off with that. You were brought to me for this reading intuitively by the universe. What I'm going to tell you is nothing but truths. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. And I always start my readings off with just that. Now, another thing that you want to consider stopping now is being silent. You don't need to go out and push your beliefs on other people. Nor do you need to feel you have to deny them either. I know a lot of witches that are in the closet. And that's fine. I celebrate that. Whatever makes things easy for you, do. But I will tell you, once you own up to any belief, whether you being gay, whether you're being trans, whether you're bisexual, whether you're a witch, a pagan, a Wiccan, anything. Once you own up and you own it and you admit it to people outside of, we'll say, the closet, your life changes. Things change for you. I can tell you that because I'm gay. And I lived in a closet for a very long time. And I will tell you, once I came out, my life completely changed. And for the better, of course. There were bumps in the road that get caused by that coming out and not being silent any longer. But I will tell you, the benefits far exceed any of the bumps I experienced. So stop being silent. Be you. Celebrate yourself. And the people that really matter the most to you will celebrate with you. The people that are going to judge you, that are not going to be there for you, never were going to be there for you anyway. They were the ones that don't matter. They were the ones that you were meant to brush aside at some point in this cycle of life and to move forward to evolve your vibe. And so consider that at least. Another thing to stop doing is stop accepting mediocrity. You don't need to be mediocre. You don't need to have a mediocre life. You can go out there and be as fabulous as you want. You can go out there and be as fantastic as you want. You can go out there and do spells, any type of spell that you want. You don't need to just do, I gotta do a cleansing spell because it's this time of month. I gotta do this type of spell because this is the Sabbath coming up. If you need to get extra money, do a money spell. If you need to get somewhere a little bit quicker, do another spell. If you want to astral project, practice it and then astral project. You don't need to accept mediocrity. If you're afraid of doing spirit work, start doing spirit work. And you'll find that whatever you're afraid of really is something from this masculine part, not this intuitive feminine part. So you don't need to have a mediocre life. You don't deserve to have a mediocre life. You're here for one very specific purpose, to bring your vibe up as much as you can in the time that you're allotted in this decaying shell. All that being said, go out there and run. Go out there and have fun. This is decaying. This is aging and decaying. So make use of it while you can. Don't accept mediocrity. Make yourself fantastic and fabulous. Now, another aspect, and I'm sure not a lot of people do this, but some people do, and you right there, you know what I'm talking about. Stop neglecting nature. Get yourself outside in nature. Go for a walk in the woods. Go for a walk in the park. Go by the river. Go by the water. Whatever you can do and whatever resonates with you, get out there and do it. Embrace it. Love it. And you will find it grounding for yourself, recharging for yourself. And if you quiet the voices down, you'll actually be able to communicate with the divine. You'll be hearing and feeling things and seeing messages. And you'll see things that may come through from ancestors and past loved ones. So you owe it to yourself to get out into nature. Now, I do get a DM a lot. Well, I live in New York. How can I do that? Go to Central Park. You can make your own nature. You don't need to be up in Mount Washington in order to be in nature. I live in a small town in Massachusetts, just outside of Fall River in New Bedford. I've got trees in my yard. I've got acreage of land in my yard. I've got nature in my yard. I don't go traveling all that far. I just walk around in my yard most of the time when I want to ground and when I want to do some work. Tonight, I'm going to be going over to the crossroads up the street because I'm going to be doing some work with Hecate. But get out there and do nature. And don't ignore it. I promise you, nature's not ignoring you. Another thing to consider, please, please, please. This goes back to this decaying shell. Stop wasting time. Stop saying, I'm doing it next week. I'm going to do it next Sabbath. I'm going to do it next new moon, next full moon. Guess what? You don't need a new moon or a full moon to do spell work. You can do spell work anytime you want. You don't have to say, I'm waiting for the waxing moon to do this spell. I'm waiting for the waning moon to do this spell. I'm waiting for 4 o'clock in the morning to do this spell. Do those correspondences help with spell work? Sure, why not? Are they necessary spell work? Definitely not. You know why? You know what the most important thing about any spell is? I'll give you a second while I take a sip of tea, right? What's the most important thing in any spell work? Maybe what you want to do is put it in the comments for me what the most important thing for you is in spell work. Now, the most important thing in spell work, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is intention. If your intention is there, and your intention is your driving force, then that is your spell in a nutshell. No matter what time of day, what time of month, where you are, your intentions is what's going to carry through that manifestation. That's why they say you can have all these different colored candles, red for love, black for protection, green for money, all that. But guess what? Any candle color works with any intention when you want it to. They also say white candles are universal. You can use them for everything. And you can. You can do the same thing with black candles. You can do the same thing with fuchsia candles. It's all about your intention and what do you want out of it. Herbs are the same way. You can use herbs for very specific things, or you can use whatever you have in your cupboard for any spell work that you want, so long as you're plugging your intention into that herb as you're mixing it. So stop wasting time and stop doubting yourself. You're the most powerful entity that you know. Your intentions are all powerful, and they will create manifestation if you let them. Now, another thing, stop judging. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but stop judging people, stop judging yourself, and stop judging religions. I do know a lot of witches that really go on about Christianity, about Catholicism. They're a little bitter. And I ask them, well, why are you so bitter? Well, you know what they did, and look what they did in Europe, look what they did in Salem. I'm like, all right, even if you were there, that was way back then. Your soul's come back many, many times since then. So let it go. It's gone. Let it go. We're no better than they if we're judging them on their beliefs. It's silly to do. And that being said, don't judge anybody on their beliefs. Their beliefs are their beliefs. People die for beliefs. People fight wars for beliefs. Beliefs are very powerful. That being said, respect another person's beliefs. If it doesn't jive with yours, let it go. Leave it alone. You don't need to hold on to it. You don't need to hold it. And you definitely don't need to judge it. You don't want people judging you, so don't judge others. It's a real simple paganistic belief. Stop judging. And once you do that, again, very much freeing. And one other aspect that you want to consider is stop letting others think for you. In other words, read books. Find stuff that works for you. Find stuff that resonates with you. But think for yourself. As I said a little bit earlier with wasting time, and as I said a little bit earlier about spell work and the moon cycles and all of that, do whatever you want to do, but you don't need to let anyone think for you. You don't need to let anyone say, hey, you can only do this then. You can do anything you want, whenever you want, so long as your intent is strong and so long as you want that manifestation to work. So don't let other people think for you. Don't let other people guide your path. Do you sit in the back seat often and let someone drive your car and hope that they're going to get you where your destination is and hope that they're going to be doing it timely? No, that's ludicrous. You drive yourself, you walk yourself, you know what route you want to take, and you go for it. Same thing goes with this path. You do your own thing, and you don't rely on others to do the thinking for you or to do the guesswork for you. And one other thing you want to keep in mind with that aspect, don't let other people do your spell work. You need to do your own spell work. If you're putting an intent out there, it's going to come from you, from here, and from here. It doesn't have to rhyme. This isn't hocus pocus. You can do your own spell work. You can put it in your own words, and it doesn't have to be perfect. One of the magical parts about this realm, this reality, and this life, and nature is everything is perfectly imperfect. There is no such thing as perfection in this realm. And I embrace that. My life is perfectly imperfect. There are things that I hit out of the park, and there are things that I stumble on. And I laugh about it because that's what it's supposed to be. Nature's perfectly imperfect, right? You can go look at one tree like, holy cow, look how majestic and beautiful that is. And right next door is another tree like, whoa, what happened? That's the beauty of nature. That's the beauty of life. Now, one final aspect that you want to consider is stop making excuses. Embrace yourself, embrace your path, embrace who you are, and don't make any excuses about it. You don't need to explain yourself to anybody. You don't need to decide, oh, I'm only going to do this when this happens on this time during a vernal equinox because Mars is in retrograde. Do you. If you want to wait, fine. But make sure you're not waiting because you're making up an excuse. Excuses are just procrastination. We can do better than that. You can do better than that. So don't make excuses. And one last aspect that I want to leave you with on this is love yourself. You really got to love yourself. You got to do that shadow work. You got to do that hard, ugly work. And you got to embrace that inner child. And you really, truly, truly need to know that you love yourself, but most importantly, that you can make yourself happy. Because, and this isn't going to go into a couples therapy session, but I'm just going to add this in. If you truly love yourself and you truly make yourself happy, you can be alone. And you can have the time of your life being alone, either talking to yourself or not, but just enjoying your alone time. I can be alone for days, weeks on end, and I find myself entertaining, and I don't ever have that, oh, I'm so lonely, oh, I'm kind of bored, blah, blah, blah. I find things to do, but I've learned how to do that, and I've learned how to love myself. Now, once you know what makes you happy, you're going to be responsible for your own happiness. Blows your mind, doesn't it? Makes you feel kind of like intimidated. But once you stop making yourself happy, your whole life changes. Now, if you're in a relationship or you get into a relationship, if you're making yourself happy and your partner makes himself happy, you guys come together knowing that neither one of you are responsible for the other person's happiness, and it's very freeing in a relationship. It really does make a giant difference. So, I do hope you enjoyed this video. I want you to know that I'll put other videos out there. I'm going to try to do 1 or 2 a week, but if you have any ideas of videos that you might want to see, might want to see me try doing, please leave them in a comment. I really appreciate comments. It helps me out a long way. Along with that, one last time, be sure to like, subscribe, leave that comment below, and hit that notification button. That helps build this channel up and allows my platform to be shared with more and more people. And you can find me on Instagram at Evolving Vibes Tara. Until next time, I want you all to be happy. I want you all to be healthy, and of everything, be blessed. Until next time, have a great night.